In Stardew Valley, there are hundreds, no, thousands of items, some that we use on a day-to-day basis, but there are a couple of items that are relatively forgotten due to them either being not very common or unimplemented in the game, with only slithers of their code left to tell us that they did, once upon a time, exist in the game. So without further ado, let's move on to the first forgotten item, the Cursed Prairie King arcade system. The Cursed Prairie King arcade system is an unimplemented item only accessible via an item spawner of sorts. Now, what makes this item way more mysterious than the other items on this list for me is that it does not have a wiki page for it. This may seem like nothing to you, but every item in the game, including the unimplemented ones on this list, have a wiki page with ample information about them, except for this one. There's not even many traces of it online, with only a handful of Steam community and Reddit posts mentioning it and asking if anyone has seen it before. Now, what exactly is the Cursed Prairie King arcade system, I hear you ask? Well, it's this thing. Yep, a purple version of the Prairie King arcade system that looks, well, cursed. And much to my dismay, you cannot interact with it, which means you cannot play it. So the question remains, what is its purpose, and why is it half in the game but not on the wiki at all? We of course do not have a definitive answer, but as this person theorized, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be rewarded to you after you completed Prairie King on hard mode. Those who don't know, in the saloon there are two mini-games. One of them is called Juno Kart, and the other one is called Journey of the Prairie King. Now, if you beat Journey of the Prairie King, then you get an option to either quit or keep playing. If you keep playing, then you start over again, except this time you are in hard mode, where end level enemies spawn on the first levels, and it's of course much harder. Regardless of if you choose to continue in hard mode or not, the next day you will receive your very own Prairie King arcade system in the mail, which means you can play one of the most frustrating minigames ever made from the comfort of your own home. So basically, what this person is saying is that once upon a time, Concerned Ape could have possibly made the Cursed Prairie King system as a reward for completing the Journey of the Prairie King on hard mode, but scrapped it due to unknown reasons. This next item is one of the two implemented but forgotten items on this list. Well, forgotten by me, but maybe not everyone. This item is the Void Ghost Pendant. The Void Ghost Pendant is an item that allows you to invite Krobus to live in your home. So once you give Krobus a slightly altered item, which is usually used to propose to people with, becomes your roommate on a house you fully paid for, on land that you inherently own. Yeah, I feel like there's some kind of friends with benefits situation going on here, because Concerned Ape for whatever reason didn't want you to be able to marry Krobus. Anyway, if you ever want Krobus to move into your house, then this item can be purchased from the desert trader for 200 Void Essence anytime after you have Krobus at 1 heart. The last implemented but forgotten item of Stardew Valley is the wilted bouquet. The wilted bouquet can be made by simply putting a bouquet and one piece of coal into a furnace. Now, the intended purpose of this item is that if you are dating someone and you no longer wish to date them, then you give them this item and you are no longer dating them, and their heart level is reduced back to 5 hearts, with no extra angry dialogue like a divorce would. However, due to the way that dating in Stardew Valley works, you only date someone if you intend to marry them, and if you no longer wish to be married to that NPC and you want to pursue relations with another NPC, then you simply divorce them, which renders this item, the wilted bouquet, quite redundant. Which is why I didn't even know about this item until I scoured the entire item section of the Stardew Valley wiki. And yes, I mean the entire item section of the wiki. Now, this item was technically implemented into the game, but you couldn't access it without majorly breaking the game. The wiki states that an error item is any item whose internal ID number doesn't match a valid item ID number in the game's underlying data file, object information.xmb. Now, in Stardew Valley, there are a bunch of item IDs, and all of these item IDs can be accessed in the file objectdata.xmb. Now, if we have a look at objectinformation.xmb, you will find all the item IDs. Now, you might notice something. It goes 0, 2, 4, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, then 25, which would mean that items 23, 21, 19, 17, any number between 4 and 16, 3, and 1 would be invalid item IDs. Also, any number after 930 is an invalid item ID. Because of this invalid item ID, the game doesn't really know what to do, so it just gives you an error item. Now, I was excited to test this out myself and get my very own bread error item. However, you may have realized that I have been speaking about the error item in past tense. This is because, as of the 1.5 update, invalid item IDs no longer spawn error items, but I of course tried to obtain one anyway. I changed the item ID of the hat that was introduced in the 1.5 update to a number higher than 930, the max item ID number. Now, interestingly, this hat item still existed, but it also made an error item. And I know it's an error item because it matched the exact definition on the wiki. This definition being that it has no associated item data, it's sold for 0 gold, and its name is of course ? And no, it was not called triple ? Because the hat I changed the item ID number from had the name ? I know this because I tested this item ID change thing on a few other items. So for example, if I changed the item ID number on wood to an invalid item ID number, it would also be called ? I also went on YouTube to see if I could find this mysterious bread error item, but all I could find was this video of a person who got the exact same default error item as me. So moral of the story is that the wiki is sometimes wrong, and that the bread error item may forever elude me unless I downgrade to version 1.2, which is not going to happen in the near future because for whatever reason the Steam game downgrader thing on GitHub just doesn't seem to work for me. It's quite sad. I'm not going to go too in depth into this topic of unimplemented weapons because DF made a whole video on this like 3 or 4 years ago, but I will skim over it. Currently in Stardew Valley there are 13 unobtainable weapons, with 6 of them being clubs, 3 of them being swords, 3 of them being daggers, 1 of them being slingshots, and 12 of the total 13 of them being NPC related. Again, I won't go too in depth into these weapons, but basically they were very gimmicky, with most of them being plain useless or having very low attack with very high attack speed. These weapons were probably just designed for NPC cutscenes and events. Go watch DF's video after this one if you want to know a tad bit more information about the unimplemented weapons of Stardew Valley. The jukebox ring is the only unimplemented ring in the game. Now we can safely infer from the title and description that the jukebox ring would allow you to play the game's soundtrack no matter where you were or what you were doing, without the need of a jukebox. The wiki for some reason does not say what update this item was introduced in, like it does for most other items. So I clicked on the image that the wiki gives me of the jukebox, and it said that this image was added on the 1st of March 2016, a month after the game came out. So it looks like this ring has been in the game since the very start. Not sure why ConcernedApe decided to scrap this item. Maybe he didn't like the idea of a ring that didn't have any associated item data, or maybe it was just too tricky / janky to release. Thank you for watching this video. If you're looking for another interesting video to watch, then I highly suggest that you watch the Dark Side of Stardew Valley video that I made, because in this video I go into detail on all the deep and dark secrets hidden in plain sight throughout Stardew Valley. YouTube also went down as it started to recommend this video a lot, which just straight up killed the video. So it would mean a lot to me if you watched this video and it helped it to once again gain traction. Thank you, and bye.